January 17th, 2018 meeting of the Building Board of Appeals to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Board Member Kaiser.
Present.
Board Member Eby.
Present.
Board Member Houchin.
Present.
Board Member Hubbard.
Present.
Chair Mitchell.
Present?
Board Member Mansky.
Present.
And Board Member Flaherty.
Present.
Okay. So we have a quorum. I'm going to ask for any comments on the agenda. If there are none, we'll move on to the minutes. Are there any comments on the minutes? These are the July 19th minutes, and it was the appeal that we heard on the roof pitch. I'm going to ask for a motion.
I move to approve the motion based on the staff's members' certification, the July 19th, 2017 minutes.
Second, please.
I second that.
Okay. Would you do a vote, please, Denise?
Board Member Kaiser.
Yay.
Board Member Eby.
Yay.
Board Member Houchin.
Yay.
Board Member Hubbard.
Yay.
And Chair Mitchell.
Yay.
And
Okay.
just a reminder that our alternates will not be voting tonight.
Right, thank you. Okay, we have a time for public comment. Is there anybody here that would like to make a comment on non-agenda items?
I'll just correct it. If someone wants to speak on general business items, now's the appropriate time to do that.
Okay. Thank you. There's no one signed up. Does anyone wish to speak? Okay, we'll move on to the general business, which is the appeal, ID number 18-008. And that's the appeal of a building official regarding the number of accessible bathrooms in a business use structure.
And Chair, if I may, I'm just going to kind of go over the procedure for this appeal. Considering I'm going to go over the procedure for this appeal. The procedure for this appeal, I'm going to go over it for everyone in the attendance for today.
Okay?
So this is an appeal, as you said, of a building official's decision. The way it will work is the applicant will give up and give their case as to why the decision should be overturned. It will then be followed by staff who will give their why it should be upheld. Following that, the applicant will have the chance to give a rebuttal testimony, anything they disagree with in staff's presentation, and then staff will be given the chance to give a rebuttal testimony that is in response to anything that the applicant says in rebuttal. Once all of that testimony has been concluded, we will close that portion of the meeting, and no further questions of staff or the applicant can be asked.
Okay, and thank you, and I'll conduct the meeting. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. The appellant like to speak? Go ahead.
So I'm assuming I don't need to read the letter that we submitted. Oh, do I need to read the letter that I submitted? Would
Yes,
that be?
please, thank you. Yes, we've read the letter, thank you.
Oh, you've read the letter. I don't need to do that.
It was in our packet, but you may certainly go through it if you'd like.
Perfect. Well, I'll just paraphrase. So,
Okay.
and I brought some photography of the bathrooms in question, if you guys would like to take a peek.
Great, yes, please.
So essentially, what we're asking is that we are a new building over on Windermere. We've done an extensive remodel over there, and we're continuing. We've completed the interior, and we're continuing with the exterior. And our business.
Can you stop 1 second?
Yes.
I don't think your microphone is on, is it?
Not. Hello?
Okay, it is, thank you, all right, okay.
I just maybe need to step up to it.
Okay, thanks.
So we're a new building over, our new business over on Windermere. We've done an extensive remodel to the unit for the last 6 months, and we're complete on the interior, and then we're starting the exterior of the parking and all of that. So where we stand now is our business is an interior design firm. As you've read in our notes, we have 9 full-time employees and 4 part-time employees. And while I know that our building is zoned and permitted for quite a few more, people there, we don't have it. So that is where we are sort of asking for some leniency with regards to one of our bathrooms. So we have one full ADA accessible bathroom, and I can show you those images if you want me to pass these around to you, that allows for a wheelchair accessible to pull up to a sink. We have the radius, we have the grab bars, we have the toilets, we have all of that. Our second bathroom is, while it has the turning radius, it's modified. It's got a couple of the bars. It's got a vanity that can be rolled up to sideways, but we don't have full pull up underneath. We don't have a vertical grab bar. And our ask is that we be given leniency for that bathroom and not have to comply 100% with the current codes that are listed for the ADA accessible. Because, to be honest, we will never have the use of handicap accessibility for 2 bathrooms at the same time. So, based on our capacity, the people that come to our established business are invited. We are not open to the public. You can't just stroll on in and, we have clients there and that sort of thing, but we're not open to, having whomever kind of come in here. So we feel like those that visit, if there is that need, that we do have that accessibility, but, our current employees and, who knows, maybe somebody that has a handicap might need to use one of the bathrooms, we have that there for them. So would you like to view the images?
Please. And identify yourself, if you would, for the record. Yeah.
I'm Miranda Cullen. I'm one of the co-owners of Duet Design Group.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, cool. Where does it come?
Okay, you can see it down here. And this is the non-compliant?
This is the full compliance. So I have a couple of
compliant.
images, yeah.
Okay,
So,
I'm not seeing a clear picture of the sink there, but
you will, hold on.
the inspector said it's compliant, so. Okay, thank you. All right, front access.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's that guy. Okay.
Okay.
And then this shows the vertical and horizontal grab bars, the full toilet accessibility, all of that. Okay, so that's the full. Does that work for you?
Okay, thank you.
And then this is the one that we're asking for the leniency on. So that's from the door. So you can see the horizontal grab bars. The toilet is the same ADA accessible, and we still have that, the turning radius in there. This is the vanity.
And one of the issues is front access.
That's correct.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
so it's open underneath. Well, I took the picture there. We had some baskets stacked under there. I mean, it's open underneath. It's just not full. It's got feet to it.
Okay.
And then this just kind of shows you how large it is, the turning radius in there.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else?
I don't, unless you have something for me.
Pardon?
Unless you have a question for me.
We will. I think
Okay.
we'll ask staff to make a presentation.
You may, yeah.
Is that going to be Bill or Kirk? Pardon? Okay, thanks.
So I don't think that there's really any disagreement in regard to the fact that.
Excuse me, Mr. Tracy. Could you please use the microphone and then state your name and title for the record?
Perfect, yep. Bill Tracy, building official, City of Littleton. So I don't believe that that we have any sort of a discrepancy in regard to the fact that as you go through the code path for the documentation that we've provided you, given the amount of square footage that the building is, given that the requirement is that they have 2 bathrooms, given that one bathroom needs to be designated as a male bathroom and the other needs to be designated as a female bathroom. I think that basically the gist of this is that she's looking for some latitude in regard to the second bathroom. The problem with the second bathroom is that the code doesn't give me any sort of latitude in regard to not making the sink accessible. The issue with the side approach sink, which is typically only applicable in a residential setting, is that there's a reach issue. Someone in a wheelchair pulls up to wash their hands, for example. It's very specific. We have diagrams in regard to how many inches away a person can reach to hit a soap dispenser, as well as turn the faucets on and utilize the water. I don't see where I could give them any latitude in that regard. The only issue, I guess, is really about the occupancy or the occupant load. Obviously, if the occupant load had been 15 or less, she would have been fine with what she has existing. We have to look at the building in the grand scheme of things throughout its entire existence. For example, Ms. Cullen potentially may not own that building in a year. Obviously, we hope that she's prosperous and she's there for a really long time, but should something come up, the building ends up going into ownership under someone else. Now we have a building that we allowed an exception to that doesn't meet the requirements for the bathroom accessibility. Whereas we may have an occupant load with a new owner that could potentially be in the 40 range. That would be basically our presentation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you have an estimate, or does Kirk have an estimate on the cost to make that bathroom compliant?
You know, frankly, I don't want to throw a number out there because Ms. Cullen, being an interior designer, she could pick very expensive fixtures. Obviously, I don't believe that she's going to go for entry-level fixtures. If I was going to throw a number out there, I would say that it would be $1,000 or less.
And that's for grab bars?
Yeah, my understanding is that in the building inspector that did the inspection and wrote up the list of issues that she had with the restroom was that I believe that she was only missing one grab bar. Is that correct? So there was one grab bar that wasn't implemented. The sink, I think, is probably the main issue, the reach on the sink as well as the fixture. And then, of course, there's an orientation with the mirror as well. So basically, it's the vanity setup is what the problem is as far as accessibility goes for a wheelchair.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have a question for Bill?
I do.
Okay.
One of the code provisions referenced was 1109.2 toilet and bathing facilities, which does read, each toilet and bathing room shall be accessible. Exception number 3 of that provision says where multiple single-user toilet rooms or bathing rooms are clustered at a single location, at least 50%, but not less than one room for each use at each cluster shall be accessible. I was wondering if that exception was considered.
It was, but in the commentary that's provided with our code interpretation, the commentary states that one male bathroom and one female bathroom does not constitute a cluster. And that's why we couldn't take that one into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else? Is that the presentation for staff?
Unless you have additional questions, as you go through your interpretation, we can provide additional documentation or diagrams. We brought our books with us.
Okay. I have a couple of comments, and then I will give the appellant or the staff a chance to respond. How's that? Because we probably have all learned that one size does not fit all, I have looked quite hard to determine if the code as written applies to the current situation or building and if an exception is appropriate. The city needs to look and make aware that an exception in a specific case could be unsafe or unfair to the next tenant. As an example, what if a next tenant supplied equipment to the disabled community and had considerably more daily traffic? The new tenant could take the facility now completed without new tenant finish, without applying for a building permit, which would then not give the city a chance to say, you need to make this bathroom compliant. So the city needs to look at, does it work for you? But it also needs to look for, you move, you're extremely successful, you want a different location, more space or whatever, and then we're left with a facility that doesn't work for the next tenant. So that's something that we're facing in this. Okay. And the math is clear that the square footage requires both a male and a female men's and women's bathroom. The code also requires front, not side access to the sink. And my question would be then, if we designate a male and a female, and we have a male using the ADA compliant bathroom, and a female who's disabled needs a facility, she's then faced with using the non-compliant bathroom. So that's something else that we need to consider. Would you like to comment on those 2 points? Mm-hmm.
So regarding the potential next tenant piece of it, you know, obviously our goal is to never ever sell the building. We're going to be there forever.
Okay.
We're here to stay. But I think more importantly is, you know, we're looking at our need right now and considering those visiting our space and what that needs to be for them to be comfortable, adequately equipped. We are a firm of all women. We actually don't have a designated men and women's bathroom. When Kirk was there with our builder, he required us to put those on the doors, but men and women use equally the bathroom. You know, we have men clients that come in and they use whichever bathroom's open, and us being a all women's firm, we all use all the bathrooms. So for our, you know, specific use and for our clients' use and our guest use, the way that we have it set up works fantastically. Now, I don't know if this is, you know, if this is something that could be negotiated, is that, you know, we write a provision, we get it documented, notarized, that if we ever did change hands, somebody else did come into the building and they required that, then of course we could make that, you know, we're talking a sink, but we're talking a very expensive, the one that's in there right now is a very expensive sink. The mirror that's in there right now, it's a very expensive mirror. So for us to remove those pieces and put in something that is accessible, to Mr. Tracy's point, yeah, it's probably about $1,000, but we've already spent like $5,000 on a vanity and a mirror. So it's more like $6,000 that we would be out to accommodate that. So I don't know if there is any leniency for us to say, listen, we will notarize it, we will sign it if this building ever changes hands. Absolutely, we can pull that sink out, put that, you know, requirement of the mirror in, and you're good to go. So that is something that we are absolutely willing to, if, you know, that's on a table for a negotiation, we would be willing to do that. So, you know, I talked about the men's and women's designation. You know, those were your two points. You know, a man who has a disability using a bathroom and a woman. So, you know, the bathrooms are interchangeable, whether that is, you know, obviously in here it designates based on our square footage. We're supposed to have one designated man space and one designated female space, but I mean, there's hardly any men ever in our space. Not that we, you know, wouldn't love a man to come work for us. It's just a solidly women-based business. Okay. So, are there any other questions?
Well, as a matter of fact, on my own, I was going through that whole process of how would we be flexible
Sure.
and allow what's now there to be okay, I guess is the right word.
Right, acceptable, yeah.
But I hadn't come up with a way that the city could be assured that when it changed tenants, that the city would then require you before you moved or before we rented, or I don't know how you logistically handle that situation where you leave and we then have a tenant with all kinds of people. They could be selling disabled equipment. I mean, which could be overwhelm any, even 2 bathrooms possibly. But certainly, one could not be adequate. How would the city, trying to be reasonable, because your presentation makes sense for you,
Right, sure.
but it doesn't for another scenario. And I haven't come up with, does Bill Tracy put on his calendar and when he leaves and goes to New York to be the CBO there, does he put it on the calendar of the guy that takes, I mean, how do we logistically we'd be approving something that would be quite out of the ordinary if you were the only tenant, but certainly an extremely difficult situation with the scenario of a different tenant at some point in the future. And that's our problem. That's my problem, at least. And I'll let some of the other members speak. Anybody else have a comment? If not, I'm going to ask Bill to come back up for a minute. But go ahead.
I'll just comment in that I'm a licensed professional engineer and I've submitted to building authorities, not Littleton, but plenty of others. It seems the private citizen of me really wants to just say, yeah, let's give her the exception, and I'm not voting tonight anyway. But from a code perspective, my opinion is the code has been interpreted correctly.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you. I'm going to ask Bill a question or two.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm hesitant to put you on the spot, so I'm not going to, because you certainly have interpreted the code correctly, given all of the support material that you've given us. Do you know of a reasonable way that we could be assured that if the scenario that I came up with came up, that the city would have an opportunity, an official chance to, before a new lease is signed, before a new tenant moves in, because I can see where someone could move in without any building permits, and so the city wouldn't even know that it had changed hands. The owner does, but the city doesn't. Do you have any?
Sir, if I did, we wouldn't be having this appeal hearing.
Okay. Well, we might still have the appeal, but you'd have to come up with, yeah, okay.
I think that the bottom line is that we don't have a mechanism in place currently
Okay.
to track that sort of a thing, and we surely don't have a resource as well. You know, the code's kind of a generic recipe book, and it's fairly rigid in regard to what latitude the building department has in regard to leniency, and that's obviously why this board is adjourned today.
And when you do the math, per 100 square feet and so on, these bathrooms aren't even close to compliant, because although you're only going to have, or the tenant's only going to have 8 or 10 people there at any one time, the the square footage allows 30 or 40 or 50 people.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Yeah, so the math is way off. It's not if it was a couple of people off math-wise, it would be different, but we're a long way off. And a new tenant could indeed have lots of employees and traffic and so on, so. No more?
Mr. Tracy, I have just some really basic questions
Yes, sir.
about some of your interpretations here. On Chapter 29, plumbing fixtures, it looks like one fixture is required per 25 of the first 50 occupant loads. At 43 occupant load on this property, it seems like that's only one complete set of 25. And then there, you kind of have an 18 remaining occupant load.
That's correct.
So is it your position then for anything over 25 that you need to have the 2 plumbing fixtures?
Our
Like, let's
position-
say there was 26 here. Would that still require 2 fixtures?
Technically, yes.
Okay. And if,
What do you do with the one person that's left of the 26? Typically, the way that I've understood the application in the jurisdictions that I've been, we round up.
okay,
So we have 18 over the 25.
okay. And if the
But-
interpretation was one plumbing fixture, would that change the outcome here at all? Or would it still be the same?
The interpretation was one plumbing fixture, then we wouldn't be here.
Okay. Because I'm just kind of thinking, if I tell someone I'll pay them $10 per bushel of apples they pick me, and they only come back with a bushel and a half, I'm only going to pay them for one. So I don't know if that's kind of a common interpretation with fixtures. And particularly, once you get over that 50 occupant load, it really sounds like into almost infinity of occupant load, only one additional fixture would be required.
Right. Well, I think, too, that we have to look at one of the other code sections that were referenced in there in regard to where plumbing fixtures are required. There needs to be for male and female.
Okay.
I mean, I honestly don't see any way around the 2 bathrooms being accessible.
Okay. And then just another really basic question on the separate facilities interpretation. So I guess the code says that that separate facilities shall be required for each sex, and you interpret that to mean that there needs to be one male and one female facility. Are there any locations in Littleton where I see this pretty commonly, it's popped up more and more frequently, where you go into a restaurant or something and they might have 2 bathrooms and they're both marked male and female, and you just kind of pop into whichever one is open. That might be a little bit more common in Denver. Do you know if that situation exists at all in Littleton, or would that be allowed?
I would say that I don't personally know that for a fact, but of course I've only been living here for 4 months.
Okay.
So I haven't been in every single facility in Littleton. However, you're going to get, no matter what you do, no matter what jurisdiction you go in, you're going to try to compare apples to apples as you go from one structure to the next. One structure may be 100 years old. It had one renovation when it was 20 years into its life. Therefore, that structure is not going to be anywhere close to the structure that was just currently built 2 years prior. So part of what's good about the building code is it allows us the ability, as people get into these older structures, for us to require that they bring them to a more safe and more compliant state. So gradually, over the life of that structure, potentially we could get it to a point whereas it meets whatever the current code is, even if it's 100 years old. And so if you take that and you sort of extrapolate that into the situation with Ms. Cullen's structure, and you look at it the way that we look at it, it gives us the opportunity to get that building to the very most code compliant state that we potentially can. At this point, it's unfortunate that she was the one that purchased it, pulled the permit, and is obligated to do it according to what the code requirements are. However, for the municipality in general, it's a benefit and a win for us because we get to get that building as close as we can with the scope of work that she's working under and the current codes that we're using to review that structure with.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a huge consideration, you know, is thinking of those disadvantaged and, you know, making facilities in the city accessible to them. So.
Yes, sir.
Nothing else? Thank you. Do you have anything else after hearing? Go ahead. I want to make sure that everybody's had a chance to say all that.
No, I appreciate that. I think to your comment about more of that unisex bathroom, I mean, honestly, that is how we utilize the bathrooms that are in our building because that's just the type of business that we are. I think to Mr. Tracy's point, that is not the current codes that Littleton follows. So we had a sit down prior to this, you know, when I was trying to plead our case because this whole thing has been a little bit of a rough go for us because the building was so not compliant in any way means like interior, exterior. And we had no idea the gravity of what was going on even, you know, outside of our building. We now do, but so I think that, you know, to Mr. Tracy's point, that there are specific codes that Littleton is following, right? You've got the books, you've all of the things that are quoted in here, but there is a lot of, we do a ton of work in Denver. So when he brought that point up about, you know, you get to choose whatever bathroom you go into, I mean, every restaurant downtown, it says you go in and you choose which one you want to go to, and it's not designated men or women unless it's, you know, inside like a hotel facility lobby type of thing. But you know, that is how we utilize our building. Now, I am very compassionate over your fear of us vacating the building, having somebody come in and not having it be within compliance. Like, we get it. There are rules. I think that for us, it's not that the building or the bathroom is not accessible. It's got the wide doors, it's got the turning radius. It's like 99.9% there. You just cannot tuck your knees underneath it, whereas the other bathroom you can. You know, we've talked about that vertical bar. Like, I didn't want, so when you go back and look at the pictures, we have a lot of paneling on that wall, and where the grab bar has to go, we're going to have to modify the paneling. The vertical grab bar has to go. We have to modify the paneling a little bit. And I didn't want to do any of that work until we had this meeting to determine, you know, if there was going to be any leniencies towards that. You know, if we have to put that grab bar in, the vertical piece of it, and make, you know, all of it except for the pull forward sink, I mean, that would be amazing if you guys would consider that for us. And I don't know, I mean, is it a notarized affidavit, whatever, that we sign that says if we ever change hands and somebody comes in, I mean, we are under 15 people. Like, the capacity is, you know, up to 43. Somebody in that, if 43 capacity came into that building, they'd have to add 2 more bathrooms at minimum for that capacity. So the entire interior of the building would have to change. The floors would have to get jackhammered. There are no drains for that kind of, you know, bathroom scenario. So while the capacity of that building might be at 43, there's no way any business could operate that many people out of it. It's just, you know, it would have to be completely renovated. Permits would need to be pulled. Like, it just, you know, it's not feasible. So, you know, I mean, we would love to keep it the way it is, you know, and understand our compassion towards, you know, handicap, ADA accessible. Again, we're designers. We design and deal with that all day long. It was never any of our intent to, you know, bypass the code, skip something. It's just the way that we physically use this building and how we and my business partner and I plan to use this building, you know, for years and years and years. is exactly in this manner. So, but I get your concern. You're on the hook. You let us have a pass, and, you know, Kirk mentioned that also. He's like, it's me saying that this building is safe for that use, and if you're not going to do it, that's on me. So that's why we sit here, you know.
And the next point that to bring up is that if we say yes, that we're going to make an exception in this case, then next week we're going to get someone that says, well, you let them do this, why can't we do that? And it's a pretty slippery slope
Right.
for the city.
Right.
That's the
But I
problem.
think, too, the use is important. You know, the
It
way
is.
that we're using the space is very unique. There's an architecture firm down the street. Like, you know, we use our spaces very differently. We're not like Romano's next door. I mean, have you ever tried to use their bathroom? That's very scary. So, you know, I mean, like, that is a whole different scenario. We use our space very, very differently. It's not, you know, a general public. It's not, you know, 50 people in there officing. It's just not that way. So, and like, we're almost there. We would just really love to be able to leave our vanity, like, intact.
Okay.
I know what we're asking.
Okay.
And again, we will go on, we're on record saying that we would absolutely, if we ever vacated the space, we take the vanity with us, to be honest with you, because it's expensive, you know, and put a different fixture in there. Because the height, you know, Mr. Tracy was talking about the reach and all of that. The height is fine. You know, it has the same all of the stuff works. It's just the fact that you can't pull under it and you can't see yourself in the mirror.
Yes, and I've not done a site visit, and nor do I get around in a wheelchair. So I'm not one to say, gee, this could work the way it is for somebody in a wheelchair. So I personally am kind of
It's a conundrum.
left
I know.
with the code's there for a reason. The code also, as I started out to say, is one size doesn't fit all, and
we appreciate that. And I think that every building is unique in and of itself. You know, there are constraints. You know, we're coming across that with the back. You know, we're supposed to have X amount of parking spaces, and we're like, but the back is only so big, so we can only get this in there. So there's a lot that, you know, the current codes, you know, if it was a big open field, big open parking lot, then you could require the building to be a certain size so that accommodates the parking and all the different things. But we're like, you know, round hole with square peg trying to make all of these things work. So, you know, the best as we can. There's been a lot of back and forth with the city with regards to that because of the constraints that our building is. We have 0 lot lines, and we're forward, you know, all the way to the front, and you know, easement issues, all of that kind of stuff. But because we didn't tear the building down, we're working within the confines of it.
yes.
So, appreciate it. Any
Anybody
questions?
else have a comment or question? Okay, thank you. You have no one else to make a comment for you? That's, okay, thanks.
I move to affirm the chief building official's decision and require 2 handicap accessible bathrooms at 5650 South Windermere.
Mr. Chair, first we need to close the general business and move on to the voting portion of
Okay,
the proceeding.
thank you. Okay, with no one else to be heard, we'll close the general business and ask you to remake your motion.
Okay. I move to affirm the chief building official's decision and require 2 handicap accessible bathrooms at 5650 South Windermere.
Is there a second? Well, here we are.
Was there a second?
There is not a second.
So it fails for lack of a second?
Alternates can't second, can they?
No.
No.
Only voting members can.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any comments by anybody? Not all of you are eligible to make a comment. I'm going to call for a vote, if you would.
All right, this vote was to affirm. Member Kaiser,
Yay.
Member Eby,
Yay.
Member Houchin,
Yay.
Member Hubbard,
Yay.
Chair Mitchell.
Yes. Yay.
All right, the vote's unanimous and the motion carries.
Thanks. Is there any comment by staff? Okay. Any members care to make a comment? Okay. I adjourn the meeting. Thank you.